At Man City Fan TV, we're really pleased to promote this wonderful sketchwork artwork by a lady called Leslie Ross. You can follow Leslie on Twitter at 111Leslie111 and also follow her on Facebook and Twitter at 9320art.
Hi guys, it's Ray here from Man City Fan TV. Well, we're still waiting for our game against Watford on Saturday. It feels like ages away because we've not had a midweek break since I think back in August. We've been playing games pretty much back to back ever since. But it's great to be in so many competitions, and I don't really mind having games back to back. It's just a bit hectic on your work-life balance and everything else, and with your kids and work and everything else, trying to keep on top of everything. But it's where I'd rather be rather than sitting at home watching on TV. Today I want to talk about a kid that left City, but there's rumours that other clubs are interested in him, and City have got a buyback clause or a sell-on clause with him, and that's Jadon Sancho. So it's been rumoured this week that clubs are willing to pay between 70 and 100 million pounds for this precocious 18-year-old. And if he is sold by Dortmund, then City would get some financial windfall out of that sale. So I'll give you a little bit of the history, a bit of the background about Jadon Sancho, and then we'll look at this sell-on buyback clause. So Jadon Sancho, he's only 18 years old. Now, he came to City from Watford, and I think we paid about 60 odd grand for him. You know, not that much at all. With the potential that it could be about £500,000 with bonuses for achieving certain targets. Now, he looked a great prospect in the youth team, and he came through at the same time as Phil Foden and Brahim Diaz. And you know, many of you City fans will remember that our chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak talked about these three as part of the future of Man City, of the academy graduates coming through and filtering into the first team. Well, sadly, that relationship that Jadon had with the club kind of soured in the summer of 2017. Apparently, he was refusing to train, or he just didn't turn up for training. He wasn't contactable on the phone, and he was omitted from the US tour that City undertook that season. Brahim Diaz went, I think Phil Foden went, I think Brahim scored a goal against Real Madrid. But they got time, and Jadon Sancho was left at home, so you knew something was afoot. There was obviously a big problem, and what it was, he had 12 months left on his contract, and he was refusing to sign another contract. The reasons given, apparently, were that he wanted guarantees of playing time, and City were in no position to offer him guarantees in playing time, because, hey, you can't make someone a guarantee, so you can play X number of games, because if you play rubbish, why do you deserve those X number of games? It's not something you should really guarantee, and it should be based upon your performance. Pep was coming in, and you didn't know. Everything was up in the air. And at that time, Jadon Sancho, there's two ways to look at it. Zinchenko, you look at him, he knuckled down, didn't want to leave, put the effort in, put the performances in, he gets games. Some people said Sancho should have done the same, knuckled down, showed what he could do, and got in above other people. But we were buying players like, I think we got Leroy Sané that summer as well. So, Sancho knew it was going to be tough. And whether you can argue it was the easy option or the right option or whatever, he decided to leave City, and he wanted to go to Borussia Dortmund. Now, City could have possibly held him to his contract and made him stay those extra 12 months, but what was the point? In a year's time, they'd have sold him to Dortmund, or he'd have gone to Dortmund on a free transfer. City would have got probably a few £100,000 as a compensation fee. And what would he have done in his last season at City? He wouldn't have got game time. There was no points, there was no need for him to be playing in the first team. He'd have just been in the youth, and he might have stunk the place around. He'd have been unhappy, and other people would have felt his unhappiness. And I think that's just a bad effect on the rest of the team, whether he's in the EDS or the academy or the first team. It's not worth having him an unhappy player around. So City sold him to Dortmund, and they got about 8 million quid for him, which is, it's a decent amount of money, and probably it was the best option for everybody. The kid wanted to leave. Dortmund were very happy to take him. City got, probably about 7.5 million quid more than they would have got if they'd kept him on for a season. So that was that. So he went off to Dortmund. Now, looking at what he did at Dortmund, he played a few reserve games for them, and then in 17-18, that season, he played 12 league games, scoring 1 goal. Now, I think that's a lot more than Phil Foden. I think Phil probably played in 5 league games, didn't get that many minutes. You know, he was coming on a sub towards the end of games. And some people have argued that Jadon Sancho did the right thing and Phil Foden should do the same and he should leave. That's a totally different story, you know, totally different argument. So in 18-19, this season, I mean, Jadon Sancho's really exploded onto the scene. He's been involved with 23 league games, so he's had 23 appearances. He scored 8 goals and he's contributed, I think, 2 assists, something like that. But he's had a very, very good season so far. My feeling is when I've seen him, you know, the thing is, you see him when he hits the headlines. You see him on YouTube scoring goals, setting up goals, playing exciting football. But you don't see him week in, week out and how he's playing. So you always get this, he's built up by the media, and he's, you know, at City, we let him go, or, you know, we won that got away. Well, we didn't, as I said, we didn't have a choice really. The guy wanted to go. He was not playing ball with us. He didn't want to sign his contract. He had no future at City because he decided he had no future at City. It's not that City lost him, you know, or some people say he's a reject from City. He chose to leave. That was his choice. If you've seen him every week, you might get a different opinion, but you can't argue with the stats. To be involved in 10 or 11 goals in 23 games, it's pretty decent stats for an 18-year-old kid. Very, very good. Now, he's also been subsequently called up to the full England squad. He's had a game or 2 with them. So, you know, the trajectory is, you know, he's taken off. He's really going places. I saw him play last night a little bit against Spurs. Didn't look too hot. I don't think he's looked on top of the game in the Champions League against Spurs. But, you know, look, Dortmund lost the first game 3-0. He was on the periphery there. They lost last night 1-0. You know, if your team's not doing well, it's really hard for you to excel yourself, especially as a kid. Now, what we're interested in here, the fact that he might be sold to, for instance, there's talk in the British press of United and other teams looking to buy him and willing to pay in the region of £100 million to Dortmund. Now, Dortmund, there's no pressure for them to sell. There's no release clause. There's no figure that you know, a team could offer which would trigger a sale of that player. Not like, for argument's sake, when Neymar left Barcelona, went to PSG, the figure was 200 million euros or 200 million quid, whatever it was. PSG triggered it and he left. There's apparently no such release clause in Jadon Sancho's Borussia Dortmund contract. But City have, it was argued they had a buyback clause as well as a sell-on clause. Now, it was argued in the British press that we had a sell-on clause. And actually, Borussia Dortmund went out of their way, because they don't normally talk about contracts, but they said it's not a sell-on clause, it's a matching right. So, for instance, if Spurs come along and say, we'll pay 70 million for Jadon Sancho, City would have the right to offer 70 million as well. Then it's up to the kid to decide if he wants to leave and where he wants to go. So we don't have a buyback clause. There's no figure that we can go and say, you know, at 70 million, we buy them back. For, you know, when we sold Kelechi Iheanacho to Leicester, for instance, we sold him for 25 million quid. I believe we had a buyback option at 50 million quid. So if we wanted, we can buy him back for 50 million. With Sancho, there's no such buyback clause. It's just a matching right. So as I repeat, if someone offers 70 million for him, we can match that. That's all we can do. But what we do have with Sancho is a sell-on clause. Now, we've been doing that for a few years. When we've been selling some of our kids, it's part of our strategy, it's part of our business methods these days. It's our business plan to get kids in and to train them on and sell them and insert buyback, if we can, buyback clauses or sell-on clauses. So with Jadon Sancho, I believe the sell-on clause is 15% of the total transfer price. So for instance, if Borussia Dortmund selling for £100 million to Spurs, let's use that as an example, I believe City would get 15 million quid. And it's very similar to what Watford did when they sold him to City. They had a clause in there, and I think theirs was about 10% of the fee. So City sold him to Dortmund for about 8 million quid. Watford got about £800,000. I've done videos before, and I say that's really harsh on Watford, the club that he'd been at for about 7 or 8 years. But that's the rules. I would like it to be a little bit better for the academies that actually develop these players and keep them for many, many years. You know, before they're in effect poached by bigger clubs, kept for 2 or 3 seasons, and possibly sold on for a huge profit. You know, Sancho. You know, we made about 7 million quid on Sancho, so and Watford made less than 1 million. It doesn't seem fair. In you know, we had him for what, 2 years, something like that, and Watford had him for 7 or 8 years. So, but it's different now. And if you actually look at the deal we did for Diaz when we sold Diaz to Real Madrid, and we sold him for a massive 15.5 million quid. There's potential 6.5 million quid worth of add-ons, but that'll be for major targets, I suspect, like winning Champions League or Ballon d'Or, or a certain number of appearances or a certain number of goals. So but basically, let's call it 15.5 million quid. And I believe we have a sell-on clause there. Again, it's 15%. And for the first time, we inserted a Manchester clause. So if he sold to a Manchester team, our sell-on fee is 40%. So for argument's sake, if Brahim Diaz does really well and he leaves Real Madrid, let's say they sell him for 50 million quid to, I'll use Spurs as that example, for 50 million quid to Spurs, we'll get 15% of that, 7.5 million quid. If they sell him for 50 million quid to Man United, we'll get 40%, that's 20 million quid. It's a new way of doing it. You know, would Diaz go back to United? And I don't think he hates City. I think he quite enjoyed it, his time here. But that's the way City are doing it. That's a new way to do these deals. And I'll mention Foden because he's the only one of the 3 that is still here. He wants to stay. He's a Manchester lad, really. Stockport, Manchester, same sort of thing. And he wants to stay here. So he's going to stay and do whatever it takes to make it into the City first team on a permanent basis. So Jadon Sancho, very exciting kid, very exciting talent. Don't believe what some people say, he was a City reject. He certainly wasn't. We were desperate to keep him. Don't believe that we let him go, because we certainly didn't let him go. We did pretty much everything in our grasp to keep him. I think we offered him 30 grand a week, trying to make him stay at City. That was his contract. I think he got a nice signing on free from Borussia Dortmund, and probably bigger wages too. I'm not sure that's the only factor. His argument was he'd get more playing time. You put all these things together, it was a good deal for the kid, and he's done well out of it. But yeah, if he is sold on, good luck to the kid. We'll get 15% of the fee. As I said, if it's 100 million quid that he's sold for, we get 15 million quid. And if you add everything together, we've in effect would have made more than 20 million pounds profit on Jadon Sancho. It's not too shabby. It's part of the business model. It's the way we do things at City. And I can see, unless FIFA or UEFA stop this, it's the way we're going to do it in the future. Guys, if you haven't seen the absolutely fantastic interview that Andy did yesterday with the Jonathan Norcroft, I think he's a Times journalist, very respected Times journalist, and Colin Savage, who's on Twitter at PressSwitchBlue, talking about FFP, Financial Fair Play. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's an hour long, but it's an absolutely fantastic 1 hour of content. You know, you just can't take your eyes and ears off that, where they go into some real minute detail, but very interesting minute detail about how we believe that City have been wronged by UEFA by changing the rules, and some journalists having a pop at City and being, let's say, disingenuous. I'm not saying that's Jonathan Norcroft, that's other journalists. Jonathan has been very good to actually to debate with us, to discuss with us, and we pass questions back and forth, and I think it's a fantastic interview. If you haven't checked it out, go and check it out, because as I said, it's absolutely brilliant, and it really is a must-see video. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel already, guys, that's the kind of stuff you're missing. Absolutely top quality stuff. Dead easy to subscribe. Subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button below. If you click the bell icon, you'll be notified as soon as new videos come out. See you around, Blues.